Hello, welcome back to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form, continuing Planet of the Ape rule, my Planet of the Apes film review series in the lead up to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. In this video, I'm talking about July 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the sequel to the reboot Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Non-spoiler thoughts first before going deep into this movie, though I of course assume that you're familiar with Rise at the very least. In that particular film, we saw the development of the ALZ 112 and 113, which was supposed to cure Alzheimer's but made apes intelligent and became a virus plaguing humans. So we are now in kind of a post apocalyptic setting. I remember the marketing went hard on this, dubbing the plague as the simian flu and showing these graphics and fake news reports showing the spread of the plague, which is even stranger to look back on now in hindsight. There was even short film material at the time that contributed to the world building. The film gives a nuanced presentation of how people view the virus. One might blame the apes, while another would blame the scientists. I think that's a key adjective that describes this film pretty well: nuanced. I've mentioned before that the novel Dawn of the Planet of the Apes Firestorm took place immediately after Rise, and while you can understand Dawn without reading that, I think Firestorm paints a decent picture of how humans are reacting to the status quo being shattered. And it also has nice stuff that kind of enhances the story of Caesar and Koba. The book even includes former Chief of Police Dreyfus, Gary Oldman's character, who leads the city humans in the film. It really adds something, seeing how his family was before this film. The same can be said of Malcolm's family in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the comic miniseries, which takes place 2 years after Rise, and it also adds to Koba's characterization. The film itself picks up 10 years after Rise, so perhaps in 2021 or 2026, depending on which of the marketing materials you believe, or maybe even 2029 if you buy into the scene suggesting that Rise ended in 2019, which would weirdly place Dawn in the same year the 2001 film took place. In any case, this is the 2020s. Weird to say, I know. Out of the three films in this trilogy, I'd say this is the one where the title makes the least amount of sense. Rise and Dawn feel like essentially the same thing. The first film, which was the beginning, could have very well had Dawn in its title. Maybe this one could have been called Plague of the Planet of the Apes, but then again, we see that plague begin in the first film, and its effects on the body are not so much on the forefront here as in the other films, though we are seeing the aftermath of humans struggling to maintain the city in light of their dwindling populations. Another title I thought of was Blood on the Planet of the Apes, though maybe that would be more fitting for the third film of this continuity. And this one could have been called War for the Planet of the Apes, which they ended up titling the next one. Though I'd say there definitely is war in the third film, not just in terms of weaponry, but also a war within. I've also heard the idea that the order could have been Dawn, then War, then Rise. That could have worked potentially, but it is what it is. Overall, as much as I loved Rise, I do think Dawn is an improvement. On the creative side, you have writers Amanda Silver and Rick Jaffa returning, and now joined by Mark Bomback. In the director's chair, however, you have Matt Reeves, whose birthday happens to be when I'm recording this. And doing the music this time around is Michael Giacchino. The result is a film that has kind of a different pace and tone. While I loved Rise, I think one could argue that the structure of that one felt kind of like a what you'd expect from a blockbuster in terms of pacing and editing, especially the third act. Dawn feels like it takes its time between the action, focusing a bit more on the character dynamics and relationships, as well as the world building. The apes look and feel like they've aged through the 10-year time jump. The world feels like it's changed. The music feels more introspective compared to the more in your face but still effective music of the previous installment. The first film was really about Caesar trying to find where he belongs. Here, you get a good sense that he is where he belongs, among ape kind, leading them as they are living in the wild peacefully. There is still so much sign language, and it's utilized wonderfully. Cornelia is his wife, and she's played by Judy Greer here. With an actress like her, I found it odd that she never had any lines in English from what I could remember, while other ape characters are given chances to speak. I have read, however, that she and her husband, TV producer Dean Johnson, had Rise and the 1968 film playing during cocktail hour at their wedding, and she later became a member of the board of directors on Project Chimp, a sanctuary for former research chimps. Caesar and Cornelia have a newborn son, as well as an older son named Blue Eyes. I do remember marketing referring to the older son as River, but I guess they went with this name to tie back to Caesar's mom, Bright Eyes, as well as perhaps a reference to a character from the animated series Return to the Planet of the Apes being nicknamed Blue Eyes. The newborn is named Cornelius. We don't find that out until the next film, but it's not really a spoiler. Even Rocket, Caesar's rival in the first film, who is now a best friend, has a son named Ash. There's a gorilla named Luca, and I really appreciate how this continuity shows that gorillas aren't all brutish and wanting war all the time. Maurice is back as well, as someone for Caesar to confide in, and he even teaches the mantra, ape not kill ape, a callback to the law in Battle for the Planet of the Apes. In fact, Dawn feels like a modern update on Battle for the Planet of the Apes and delivers better on the warfare aspect. It's not war all throughout this film, but when it does happen, you feel the gravity of it. What makes Andy Serkis's Caesar different from Roddy McDowell's is he has no interest in dominating humankind. He just wants to make sure apes are safe. Humans are indeed still around, but struggling to survive with their limited resources. So there's this back and forth on whether Caesar should help these humans maintain their civilization. But of course, Koba hates humans, so this leads to a power struggle. I like that it's not just automatically like apes should have war with the humans. It feels more nuanced and complicated, building up conflict in a way that makes sense. Spoilers for the beginning of the film. The apes are living peacefully, not sure that humans are even still around, until they encounter a group led by Jason Clarke's character Malcolm. I've wondered whether he's named after Malcolm McDonald from either Conquest or Battle for the Planet of the Apes. I've talked about the McDonald brothers before in my review of Battle, and looking back, I'm kind of wondering if I got their names mixed up. But anyway, whether the name is a coincidence or not, Malcolm here would prefer peace between humans and apes, though Caesar and the apes are skeptical at first, since Carver, a member of the human group, injures Ash out of fear. Malcolm also has a wife named Ellie and a son named Alexander who lost his mother to the plague. The humans really just want to restore power in what's left functioning of San Francisco, and the way to do that is by working the hydraulic dam that's near the apes. Dreyfus, as a leader of the community, is more level headed than I expected. The marketing made it seem like he'd be this villain who wants all apes dead right away, but that's really not the case. We don't get that type of human villain until the next film. He's really just trying to protect everyone. Caesar makes a point that the apes do not want war, but that there will be one if the humans cause them any harm. Malcolm sets out to reason with Caesar so the apes may let them peacefully access the dam. Spoilers for the middle of the film. There's some back and forth on trust, with Carver being a problem, but the humans work things out with the apes. Progress ends up going well with the dam, but Kobo, with his hatred of humans, is very unhappy. Things escalate when he questions Caesar's loyalty to ape kind, and Caesar nearly kills Koba. The bonobo, aware of munitions that humans have stored in the city for self defense, messes with human guards in the city, killing them and retrieving weapons. He even kills Carver. And after a peaceful moment when the generator works and the power in the city is on, even giving Dreyfus a human moment as he sees a picture of his long gone family on the screen again, Koba stages a coup, firing a bullet at Caesar but making it seem like humans did it. Maurice, not believing this, apparently, warns Malcolm and company to run. The shooting of Caesar should surely be shocking, but I did not believe he was dead because there was still a clip from the trailers yet to be seen. Malcolm and company find Caesar and tend to his wounds when they stop over at a house that Caesar recognizes as the Rodman house, his old home. And yeah, this is the aforementioned clip that I alluded to. The act of looking at camera footage of Will Rodman feels like a modern update of the original Caesar, looking at archives of his parents in battle. I like how this film doesn't talk down to the audience. It feels pretty clear that Will is dead, even if we didn't see it explicitly, and we see how much he still means to Caesar, and how he and Malcolm are reminders that humans can be good. Spoilers for the end of the film. Koba and his forces have invaded San Fran. Koba surprisingly kills Rocket's son, Ash, when questioned. The novelization, which I think may have been my first experience with Audible, has Rocket saying, "You killed my son," like the line from Battle, and I wish that had been in this film. We needed more of Rocket reacting to the death of his son. Koba is definitely the Aldo of this film. The apes who are loyal to Caesar are imprisoned in a school bus, a vehicle that's another callback to Battle. Koba had been trying to manipulate Caesar's son Blue Eyes, but the young chimp spots Malcolm and doesn't kill him and is informed of his father's survival. A plan is set in motion with the freeing of the apes loyal to Caesar and a confrontation with Koba on top of this tower. Malcolm finds Dreyfus, who says they've made radio contact with military forces who are on the way. Malcolm holds up a gun in an attempt to keep Dreyfus from blowing up the tower. I can't help wondering if there was perhaps a better way Malcolm could have tried reasoning with Dreyfus, but I guess the heat of the moment makes people react in different ways. Dreyfus is certainly unwilling to listen to reason, saying, "They're animals! They attacked us!" So he ends up blowing up the tower at the cost of his own life. As Caesar and Koba fight, all this happens, and the way it ends up is Koba is on the verge of falling to his death. He reminds Caesar of the law that ape shall not kill ape, but Caesar, seeing that Koba has become a monster, says to him, "You are not ape," and lets him fall to his death. Some grunting during the end credits did make it feel like maybe Koba survived, but it was ultimately decided he's dead for the next movie, and I really do think that's for the better. I'll go into that next time. Malcolm and Caesar mourn the loss at the potential for humans and apes to prosper together. Caesar realizes that Koba, an ape, started the war, and humans will not forgive apes for this reason. He tells Malcolm to go, and as a new day dawns with sunlight and whatever, Malcolm steps into shadow, and there's a zoom in on Caesar's face, very similar to the zoom in on Caesar's face at the end of Conquest. I love how these films respect the mythology while keeping things fresh. While it may seem like Malcolm leaves right away, the novel War for the Planet of the Apes Revelations would show that he, Ellie, and Alexander are still with the apes for days after this scene. I do recall that book also adds a bit more weight to Ash's death. As for my score on this movie, like I've said, I love Rise, and it gives me this indescribable surge of energy, but Dawn trusts its audience and shows how things have evolved since Rise. It really continues to build out the mythology of this particular continuity with a path that makes sense for the story being told. So I'd give this at least 9.25, maybe even 9.5 out of 10. And I'll just say now that, in my opinion, it gets better with the next installment, War for the Planet of the Apes. So more on that next time on this channel.